Items are and always have been an integral part of the experience in Zelda games, whether it be the bombs in The Legend of Zelda, the slingshot from Ocarina of Time, the grappling hook from Wind Waker, the spinner from Twilight Princess, or the whip from Skyward Sword. These games have always featured items, and usually these items are tied to progression. Through getting the hook shot in Ocarina of Time, you can progress to the first dungeon in the Adult Era, and this kind of progression was seen all throughout the Zelda games right up until The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Along with many other innovations I've already covered on the channel, the biggest innovation was the open world. In a truly open world, you can't really do item progression. So what did the Zelda team do? They switched the item formula up utterly and completely, giving us items more likely to be seen in a massive open world, items that truly change how we play around in that world. So with that big change in items, today I want to talk about 5 brand new items formulated inside of my own noggin that I would love to see in Breath of the Wild 2. I really need to stop watching someone insult videos, this is getting kind of out of hand. So let's get started with this list of 5 brand new items that I want in Breath of the Wild 2. Now first, climbing in Breath of the Wild. Tell me what you thought of it, either in the comments or you can just think it. Now let me get my opinion of it across. I think climbing as a puzzle mechanic was great, providing you didn't have Rivali's Gale ready at hand. Considering I didn't have much stamina when I first decided to climb Dueling Peaks, it was just a great challenge to understand the basics of climbing in that game. But of course there's always a complaint when it comes to climbing in Breath of the Wild. I think you all know where I'm going with this. I absolutely and utterly hate the rain in Breath of the Wild. Climbing in of itself is a great mechanic, and considering other games' attempts at a similar gameplay style, I think that this game did it nearly perfect to the T. But as soon as the clouds decide to start a downpour, that's it dude, that's it. You're completely done for the next 3 in-game hours at least. Now some people have already suggested some pieces of clothing and other methods to ease up on how insanely aggravating the rain is in Breath of the Wild. Well, my suggestion would be, in the beginning of the game, give the player the exact same issue as the original game, then naturally later in the game give the player some climbing claws. An item that you can use when it starts raining. It's always equipped, but to actually use it whilst climbing you have to hold down Y. And while this would probably get annoying at times because you'd have to hold down Y, I also don't want to say that these will just be something that you have to equip like an item set. I'd much rather them be always equipped, personally speaking. I can see this item and most of the items on this list using the energy that was seen in the last trailer of the game at E3. Maybe even the hand we've seen in the trailers is what keeps Link attached to these surfaces. I'd be baffled if they didn't sort this issue in the next game, considering it seems like every tuber I see discusses rain in the next game with a negative connotation. Obviously this would be a game changer, and I'm thoroughly excited to see how the Zelda team do end up fixing this flaw. Next up is a grappling hook. I'll be honest, this is the single least original idea on this list, but every single game is getting a really cool grappling hook nowadays, whether it be the Uncharted games, Halo Infinite, Sekiro, and many more. These games all have one grappling hook, or grappling hooks, and without going into some of them too much, these grappling hook sections can honestly be some of the best bits of each of their respective games, with Sekiro incorporating the grappling hook as a primary combat mechanic, allowing you to grapple yourself towards enemies. More on that in the next game later on. For now I'd like to talk about the traversal options a grappling hook would bring to the table, whether it be quite linear grappling hook sections as seen in games like Uncharted 4, or a case of being able to grapple hook wherever you want, as seen in a game like Halo Infinite a little while back. The items in Breath of the Wild did actually break the game. While scripting this bit of the video, I wanted to say that the Zelda team wouldn't add items that would break the game, but realistically, that would be a huge lie. They're more than capable of breaking the game to make a more fun experience, as we've seen in the last game. So a free roaming grappling hook used in any location would make more sense in the world of Breath of the Wild 2 than a lot of things really. I could see the grappling hook being the only item on this list not being made from the energy present in the last trailer. But honestly, again, a grappling hook in the next game could just be Link sticking his arm onto a wall, similarly to Mr. Fantastic or Elastigirl. So in terms of this design, this item could be very different to anything we've seen in the series before, but we'll see if it's even in the game first. Gliding in Breath of the Wild. Pretty fun, right? It's basically already been confirmed that gliding is going to be making a comeback in Breath of the Wild sequel, and today I'm not going to tell you what you've most likely heard before, something like, bring us Loftwings back, though I do have a video on that, or give us custom gliders in the next game, anything, just give us something that isn't the exact same glider for the entirety of the next game. Well, I have a proposition for the Zelda team. It seems we might be gliding from island to Sky Island in the sequel, and with that in mind, I'd say that the usual gliding speed in Breath of the Wild gets pretty darn boring if you're just trying to get somewhere fast. Trust me, I use a lot of gliding footage in my videos, and dude, you can glide without stopping for ages when you've got full stamina, and you'll only really go far if you take a load of time to get there in the first place. So what about this instead? Maybe in one of the dungeons in Breath of the Wild 2, you're granted an add-on to any of your gliders, allowing you to streamline the time that you're on the glider, just making you just that little bit faster. Maybe even the snippet of gliders we've seen in the next game could be hinting at this idea, with the little tethers dangling off the back of the normal glider. Who knows? Either way, if we're going to be traversing the skies with our gliders, this would be a huge step in the right direction in my opinion. Let's go back to Sekiro now, shall we? We've talked about a grappling hook being used in terms of traversal. Now I want to talk about that idea more in a combat heavy setting, and this one I could 100% see being Link's new hand. In fact, it would sort of remind me of Midna's hand from Twilight Princess of all things. The idea is that using your newfound weird gloopy hand, you could grab enemies whether it be by the head or by any other means, and throw them closer to Link. This wouldn't work for certain larger enemies. I mean, hoisting a Hinox would be pretty darn hard, but for bokoblins this would work like a treat. Sometimes moving backwards and picking off bokoblins or other enemies would be pretty beneficial, especially in the early sections of the game to ensure that the hero can get past any larger gangs of enemies blocking his way. At the same time, the hand could also drag Link over to the enemies instead, to take the enemies off guard, maybe even allowing more sneak striking options to the hero. Personally speaking, I'd like the first idea to come to fruition a bit more. But darn if this isn't a good idea to spruce up the combat in the next game. It makes me all the more excited for the sequel's combat and how much different it could be with just some newly added items. The final set of items I'd like to take a look at today is a mix of a thing we've had in the Zelda series before, all the way since the beginning, and a thing we've seen evidence of in Breath of the Wild sequel. The former being shields. They've been in every single mainline Zelda game. No, crossbow training, you do not count. And the latter being items that seem to shoot fire out at enemies. Well, I don't think this would be too out of the ordinary, even if it could definitely be seen as overpowered if not properly balanced against the harder enemies of the game. But what about mixing these ideas together and making a shield that can block, parry, and finally shoot fire at enemies, making the main combo of this item block or parry to throw an enemy off guard before setting an enemy ablaze and spamming your sword. In doing this, it would generate even more combat options for the player. This item though, I would much rather it be seen in the final dungeon of the game. Even if you can visit that dungeon whenever you want, it'd just be nice if, on a first playthrough, you can't just breeze through the game using an item that could ruin the game. Though I do have a lot of faith in the Zelda team to not mess up an item like this. I mean, while runes were game breaking, they were still fair for the enemies. I'd expect the same sort of care taken into the next game's items, and that doesn't just go for this one, but all of them in this list. So I think that's it. 5 brand new items that I'd love to see in Breath of the Wild 2. Tell me what you thought of my ideas in the comments down below, and along with that I'd love to see your own ideas for items that should be in the next game. Make sure to get your thoughts in there, as I'll at least look at and heart every single comment left on the video. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please do support me by leaving a like rating and subscribing as we wait for more Breath of the Wild 2 news, and hopefully more news on items soon. The people you can see on screen right now are my Patreon supporters, and they're just perfect people. Look at them. Sumji and Jared Whedon are especially amazing for being my top paying patrons. Just look at the Triforce coloured names and the Triforce font. Thank you so much for the support, guys. If you'd like to join them, then you can do for as little as £1 or $1.50 a month. The link to my Patreon is in the description, and along with that link is the link to the rest of my media platforms, so please do follow me on them if you'd like to keep in touch with me. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all on Sunday. Please do stay safe.